Today I'm in the wood yard. We're not in the wood yard. We're in my backyard having a fireside chat. Here we go. I have not worked in the wood yard now for, I think, 4 days. I have been sick with the flu or some sort of ailment. It feels like COVID again. And today's the first day I've been kind of ambulatory. I've been up and around a little bit. And I felt like coming out and sitting by the fire tonight. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well make a video because I haven't made one in like 3 days now, 4 days almost, I think. 4 days since I made a video. So I thought today would be a good day to just talk about things that come up all the time. So I wrote down, I got about 10 things here that come up all the time on the channel. So I just thought I would address them because they're good questions. They deserve good answers. And so that's what we're going to do today. I'm just going to answer some questions that you guys ask quite often. Sorry if my voice isn't really good. I've been hacking and coughing for the last few days and my throat's kind of raw. So, okay, here we go. First one we're going to talk about is drying wood. Number one comment I get about the bins. The guys can't believe that the wood dries in the bins. Yes, it does. Out of everything I've ever done to dry wood, the bins are the best. Number one, where we have the bins out at the farm, it gets sun all day. As soon as the sun breaks the horizon, the sun is on it. When the sun goes down in the evening, the sun is on it. It gets sun all day. We're kind of on a little bit of a crest there. And also because it's on a crest, it gets wind all the time. If there's a day when there's no wind, you go out to the farm, the fan is on. I've never been there where there's not a breeze of some sort. And most days, if it's just kind of like, oh, there's a little breeze today, you go out there, it's 20-mile-an-hour winds. It's always windy there. So it dries fantastic. So the bins are great. And part of the reason, see, somebody keeps moving that smoke around. This is supposed to be smokeless, but I just started it. So it's not really got a lot of coals yet. It'll turn smokeless in a little while once it gets going. But the main reason the bins work so good is because it's off the ground. It's on pallets, and then the sides are pallets, and the top is open. So sun hits it, wind hits it from all sides. So that matters. That is huge. Now, a lot of people think that, oh, you got to stack your wood to dry it. Well, let me ask you this question. Let's just take, say for instance, you do a load of laundry and you've got a basket full of towels from your bathroom. Say you got a dozen of them in there and you take them out to the clothesline. Are they going to dry faster sitting in the basket out in the sun? Are they going to dry faster spread out across the clothesline? Yeah, exactly. When you stack wood, yes, it's going to dry. All wood dries. The tighter you stack it, the more enclosed it is, the slower it will dry. The one thing you can do to make sure it doesn't dry is to cover it from the day you cut it, when it's green, from the side, from the bottom side, all the way up over the top to the other side and the bottom with a tarp. And hold all that moisture in it. Keep all the ground moisture in there. Guaranteed to not dry. It will grow mold. It will grow mushrooms. If you want to cover the top, then the top only, that's fine. I find my wood dries better uncovered. The little bit of rain we get, even if we get an inch of rain, when I've dug into the piles, the rain in a big pile that's 10 feet high, the rain will never go down more than about a foot, foot and a half. That's it, and it sheds off the sides because they are somewhat peaked. The really big firewood producers produce big, huge cones on the ground all the way to the top that are 20, 25, 30 feet high, and the wood sits like that for months. 4 to 6 months, that's all they do. And they sell a lot of wood that way. So you don't have to stack your wood. Now, there are reasons why you should stack your wood. If you're in a residential area and your neighbors won't like just a pile of wood laying on the grass or with a bin that you build and a nice neat row looks good and you put it in a rack and you put some type of a covering over the top, it looks kind of organized and neat. So that's one good reason. Another good reason, when you stack it, you know exactly how much you have. So you know if you've got a third of a cord or a face cord, same thing. 8 feet long, 4 feet high, 16-inch pieces. You know how much you've got. If you've got 3 of those, 3 rows, 4 feet high, 8 feet long, 128 cubic feet, it's a full cord. So stacking will let you know exactly how much wood you have. But in my case, it doesn't matter because the wood I burn for myself, I don't care. I just bring more home. And the right amount of wood in my wood yard to produce is more. And the right amount of wood that I sell to the people is easily determined by me because I have filled my truck and my trailer so many times with measured stack face cords, third of cords, 2/3 of a cord, full cords. I know how much volume that takes up. So what I do is I fill it up to the level it needs to be, and I throw a little bit more on, and I don't have to stack the wood. And yes, it dries fantastic. Now, I'd say this is a myth that I hear quite often on the channel. I was going through the comments and looking and seeing people arguing back and forth about drying wood. One guy made a comment that wood does not dry at all in the wintertime. Well, he's very wrong. Wood dries a lot in the wintertime. It doesn't dry as fast as it does on a hot, 90, 100-degree day with 20-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah, it's going to dry fast. You got a blowtorch on, it's going to dry faster. But in the winter, you have drier air. It's still windy. If the sun is on your wood, that wood is warming up a lot of times to above freezing. A lot of days you get in the winter are 30, 40 degrees. The wood is drying all the time. The reason I know this to be a fact is because one time this is before I started doing videos, I got a load of wood in, and it was all big stuff, all oversized. It was 24 to 36-inch red oak. Get away from me, smoke. And it was very wet, very heavy wood. And it was before I had a tractor, before I had any way of moving it. So my only way to do it was to cut it into chunks and then rip it again and then be able to handle it, because it was big wood. And one evening before dark, I had 2 logs laying on the ground, and both of them were about 24 to 30 inches. And I cut them into the rounds, the 16-inch chunks, and then the cookie off the end. And I didn't cut all the way to the ground because it was froze to the ground. And the next day, what I was going to do was I was going to use my truck and a chain, I've done it before, to just roll the logs over. So that was before I had the tractor. So I cut all the way through, just about within about a couple inches of the ground, and I left them. I came back the next day, and it was 20 below that night. It was clear out, there was no wind. There was about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of frost on every single kerf all the way around the log. Frost that came out from the logs, from the wood, from the cut. So I know it was drying, but it was freezing as it was drying when it was coming out. So that was, to me, the clearest example I've ever seen of wood drying in the wintertime. And I know wood dries in the wintertime because I've cut a lot in the wintertime, thrown it into a bin, or I've stacked it in piles, and in spring done moisture testing on it. Say the wood has been in a bin or stacked in a pile for 3, 4, 6 months, and I've tested it with a moisture meter, and it was dry. So it dries in the winter, just not as fast. So another couple of reasons why you want to stack your wood. Number one, it looks neater, it just does, and it probably will look better in your neighborhood. You know how much wood you have. By stacking it, you're going to get it off the ground. Usually you're going to put it on something, so you're going to get it off the ground. You're probably going to cover the top of it, so that's all nice and organized. Stacking it in a small space, say in your garage, if you got a rack, you can get it in there and you can conserve your space. So stacking will conserve space, because unstacked wood takes about 25 to 30% more volume-wise, when it's just loose. But when it's loose like that, there's more space for the air to flow through for it to dry better. That's just a fact. So the other biggest reason I can think about why you'd want to stack your wood is that your significant other, also known as your wife in a lot of your cases, or your boss, doesn't want to mess, and they want it to look good. I think I got to move. Another reason that people stack wood a lot of times is because they have a wood shed, and they want to fill the shed because they want it to look nice and neat and all organized and everything, and that's great. My brother has a shed. He keeps his wood in. He can fit, I believe, it's like 25 to 30 face cords, so about 10 full cords he can get in there, and he keeps it full almost all the time. He tries to use one half one year, one half the other year, but that wood is in there for at least 2 years most of the time. So it doesn't need to dry fast for him. And he splits his wood fairly big for his boiler. So for him, it works good. It keeps it out of the snow, keeps it out of the rain and all that kind of stuff. And it's right by his boiler. So it's a good location for him. So it's another reason to stack wood. So tonight we're going to have a fireside chat. And what I thought I would talk about is all the good comments, bad comments, funny comments, questions that come up all the time. Wow, that fire's really hot. I put some more wood on and it's just cranking now. So a lot of people have questions, and I don't always get to explain it thoroughly in the comments, and I can't always make a video out of it, but I think I can address a bunch of them right here, so that's what we're going to do. We got the worm bond stove going. I got some wood in there. We've got some ash in there. I got some pine in there, because pine is fine. I have some maple in there. There is some cherry in there. And I think there might be some honey locusts in there. That's kind of what I had alongside the house. I actually just bring home whatever kind of wood is left over. Odd size stuff is what we burn. Nothing particular, because as you guys know, all wood burns. So the first thing I want to talk about is YouTube etiquette. And a lot of you don't know this. When you make comments using language that isn't appropriate for everyone, you will be flagged. Not by me, but by YouTube. They don't like it. And we try to keep it as clean as possible. I try to keep my content as clean as possible. So if I see a comment that has a language on there that's not appropriate, or if it's abusive towards another person, there's several things I can do. I can tell the person one time, don't do this anymore. I can delete the comment. That's the next step. The next thing I can do is I can actually go and delete all of their comments on my channel and pin them so that YouTube will never let another one of their comments show again on my channel. There's a lot of YouTubers that do that. They will get rid of trolls. They will get rid of the turds. I like to say I flush the turds. So if you're arguing with each other, being unruly without having a debate that goes back and forth, that you can agree to disagree without being obscene towards each other or rude towards each other, that's okay. As long as you're civil at the end. Because it's not just my playground, it's YouTube's playground. And if you don't obey the rules, they make you go away. And if you get a lot of those where you get flagged by someone like me that says, hey, I don't want this person anymore, they can close your account forever and you can never make another comment ever again. So for those of you maybe that watch videos but never make comments, or you make a comment but you never see the comments, it's because one of us has done that, or several of us have done that. We just don't want you around anymore. So there's that. So that's kind of something to think about. So I think that pretty much covers the etiquette there. You know, just play nice. My God, that's hot. I had to get away from the fire a little bit. It's getting way too hot. It's not even that cold of a night, but it's supposed to cool down once the sun goes down. So I thought, oh, I'll go out and make a fire and do a little chat tonight. Well, the fire's too hot. The eternal debate, bar size. East Coast versus West Coast, or should I say European size bars versus West Coast size. The people that cut on the West Coast are cutting different kind of wood. They're cutting big wood, and they're cutting fir, and they're cutting spruce, they're cutting softwood. They can get away with big bars, and they need the big bars. Most of the rest of the United States, a lot of Canada, and most of Europe, 18, 20, 24-inch bars is kind of the standard. And a lot of people think you got to use the longest bar you can possibly lift. I don't agree with that, because I can lift a 6-foot bar. I've got a 5-foot bar, a 60-inch bar. I've got one on my 3120. I can lift it, not for very long, and I can't control the tip because it's so heavy. It weighs 42 pounds, the whole thing. So if I'm supposed to use the longest bar possible, I should be using that all the time. No, I don't think so. I've ran a 42-incher a couple times just trying to do it. That's way too long. 36-incher, still too long, because I hit the ground way more often, because you can't see that tip all the time. Plus, you can't control that tip. If I'm trying to sneak it into a log pile and make a small cut, it's just too long to handle. And if you're in the woods, cutting trees with lots of limbs, it's a pain in the butt snaking that big long bar through the brush trying to cut. Shorter bars are better in brush, 20-inch, 24-inch at the most. My brother Ken worked as a logger for 30-some years. He always used a 20-incher. All the guys he worked with on all the crews ever used 20-inch bars on a 372. That was their saw of choice, still is, because it works. A 20-inch bar will give you a 40-inch cut, which cuts down almost every tree we have. It's rare you need a bigger bar. Now, I like a 24-inch bar because I don't have to bend over hardly at all. Now, I have a buddy of mine that he uses a 20-inch, 28-inch bar, but he's 6'4". So for him, it's no big deal. He can just stand there and he can stand up and buck, and he can just about hit the ground, or just about not hit the ground is the key, when he's cutting. But I find once I got to the 28, I lost control and I wasn't able to weave it where I want it and put it where I want it. For me, I'm 5'10". The 24-inch bar is perfect for me. If you're a guy on the West Coast and you cut a lot of big trees, you might be used to cutting with a longer bar. But if you're cutting wood like I do in wood piles where you're cutting everywhere from 6-inch wood all the way up to 20-inch wood, all different sizes. The biggest stuff I think we ever cut is once in a while we'll get something that's 30, 36 inches from like a tree job or something. And then, yeah, maybe we'll use a bigger bar on those. But even then, you can cut from both sides for the few trees that you get. So there's that. I know it's a huge debate and guys think they got to have a big bar and there's guys that think you got to have a short bar. Use whatever you like. Don't listen to anybody else. But try all the bars so that you know. I myself tried bigger bars. I've tried smaller bars. Small bars seem just too short. I did a lot of bending over, a lot of leaning. My back hurt way more with the 20-inch bar. 24 for me was just right. 28 wasn't bad, but I felt more comfortable with the 24. That's just me. You should try all different sizes. Okay, we'll stop arguing the bar debate now because it's going to go on forever. Okay, another thing that comes up all the time is my zip tie method. People say, does it really work? Yeah, I've been using it for probably 8 or 9 years now. I used to use the bar method where I would put a mark on the bar and turn it sideways and look and see where my mark was and then make the cut. I've tried the Pro Sizer. I've tried the stick method. I've tried a ruler with a marker, with a piece of chalk. I've done all that. The zip tie works for me because I cut in log piles most of the time. And if I'm cutting wood on the ground, it's usually bigger trees. And so I lay the saw so that the tip is at the end of where the last cut was, and then I cut. And if I'm cutting in a big pile and I'm standing up and I'm cutting smaller pieces, I put the tip where I think it's got to go. I look over to the side slightly. I look at where that lines up and like, I'm within a half an inch, that's good, I cut. I'm not using a micrometer to cut wood. It's all going to turn to ashes. If it's 15 to 17 inches, it's good. I prefer 16. 15 and a half, 16 is good. Once in a while, if you get a little bit of short one, it's not the end of the world. The long ones are what people don't want. Because if they're stacking it in a rack in their garage, they don't want big long pieces sticking out in their garage. The next thing, safety gear. I did a video not long ago about our helmets that we got. Yes, they were expensive. Yes, the comms were expensive. But they're worth every penny. We are able to talk to each other as we're doing a job now without having to throw a chunk of wood or yell or stop what you're doing to get their attention. You can actually talk to them when I'm sitting on the processor and say, hey, I need some more wood. I'm getting low on the live deck. Or hey, I need the trailer moved. It's full. Or hey, you need to clean up in front here. My chute is getting full. The chute's not dropping anymore because it's full of wood. We can just say it and it's done. That helps so much. And I did a job not too long ago. You guys probably saw it where I worked with the arborist and I had the same headset they had, so I was able to hear everything they were talking about. Oh my gosh. I got to tell you, that was so nice to know what they were doing, why they were doing it, how they communicated, how efficient they were. We did that whole tree job. I watched. It was an hour and a half. And it was about a 30-inch honey locust. It was a big tree. It was gone in an hour and a half. I got a lot of the wood, so that was pretty cool. Also, the earmuffs on these Protus helmets are better than anything else I've ever used. I've, for the last few years, been wearing earplugs and muffs at the same time when I cut because I've got some hearing loss in my left ear, probably 30%, and a little bit in my right ear, and I want to keep what I've got. My dad is about 70% deaf in both ears, and I don't want to be like him. I want to have my hearing longer than he did. He was in the service and he shot howitzers, so it's part of the reason why he's got such bad hearing. He's always had bad hearing. I want to be able to save my hearing as much as possible, so that's part of the reason. The other reason is the screen works really good on it. The earmuffs, they pop up inside. You can get rid of them. The chin straps, you can use it or not use it, but I like it because you can bend over. Your helmet never falls off. What else can I say? Oh, it's got built-in glasses, so you just flip the glasses down. So if you get something that's real powdery, or if you're cutting something with a dull chain, or if it's dusty, whatever, you can put glasses on, eye protection glasses, along with the screen. So they're just worth it. Adam, who's on the channel, you see him every once in a while, and whenever his wife questions when he's spending money on something, especially if it's steel toe boots or chaps or his gloves or helmets or anything like that, or glasses, she'll ask him something like, "Is that really necessary? Do you need to spend that much money on it?" And he'll say, "Is there a price to safety?" He'll actually say that. She's like, "No, you get whatever you need." Because the most expensive chaps, the most expensive helmet, the most expensive gloves, the most expensive safety boots, the most expensive safety gear is way cheaper than the cheapest accident with a chainsaw. Chainsaw accidents, the average stitches are 110. Emergency room visits are thousands of dollars. Wear the safety gear. Now, if you think you're smart enough to not wear the safety gear, if you're a guy out there in shorts and flip-flops, standing on a log, cutting with one hand, or doing stuff like that, not wearing earmuffs or a helmet. I mean, there's guys that have channels that still do that, which boggles my mind, that they're supposedly pros, but they're out there goofing around, and they're losing their hearing. They're jeopardizing their eyesight. They're not going to be able to communicate just in everyday life, let alone on the job. There's so many things you can do to stay safer on the job. It's so important. I just really can't put a price on it. It's really important because I like my parts. And generally, when it comes to safety gear, if you think you're too smart to wear it, you're going to get a lot smarter when you get cut or crushed or blind or go deaf. You'll get a lot smarter. Your intelligence will probably quadruple. Firewood cost. Now, depending on where you live, where you are, is going to determine the cost of what you can charge for firewood or what you're going to pay for firewood. That's just the way it is. It is supply and demand. And the easiest way I can explain this is if you live out in the boondocks in the sticks, your closest neighbor is 4 miles away, and you live in the woods, and the closest town is 100 miles away, and there's nothing but trees between you and the closest town, firewood's going to be extremely cheap because it's everywhere. And most of the people that live out there are going to be fairly self-sufficient, and they're going to cut their own wood. So firewood in rural areas that are very low populated and have a lot of trees, firewood is going to be like $50 for a face cord or a third of a cord, however you want to say it. It's going to be cheap. But if you live in a big city, Chicago, Minneapolis, Washington, D.C., Dallas, Texas, some of the bigger cities, you're going to pay minimum $200 for a face cord or a third of a cord, more than likely close to $250 to $300. I have one guy that I met in an airport not too long ago. He's from D.C. area. He said the going price is $750 for a full cord. That's the price. And he said, that's not cheap and that's not expensive. That's the price. So where you live matters. So this whole like, oh, I could never charge that much where I live. Yeah, you're right. You couldn't because you don't live where there's people. Or guys that say, I would never cut wood for $50 for a third of a cord and sell it. No, you shouldn't, because you can't make any money at that price. The next topic is probably the most, what's the word I would use? I would use passionate, the most passionate people get. And generally it's people on the East Coast that apparently in their area, if you say the words face cord, they cut your tongue off. But in most of the rest of the United States, the western half, the Midwest, and most of Canada, face cord is a very common term. And people will say, well, that's not a legal measurement. It doesn't have to be. If people agree that there's that much wood and they agree on the price and they're both happy, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This whole weights and measures things doesn't matter. But in their defense, I understand that you want to get what you're paying for. So some people think that a face cord can be pieces that are 6 or 12 inches all the way up to 24 inches as far as your pieces. Well, the standard size is 16 inches, which is one row, 4 feet high, 8 feet long. And that is 42.66666666 cubic feet, which is 1/3 of a full cord. A full cord is 128 cubic feet. And 128 cubic feet is 3 face cords or 3 1/3 cord rows, which are all stacked, 8 feet long, 4 feet high. 3 of them together is a full cord. Now, to add confusion, there are parts of the country, a lot of them are down south, some of them are regional. In some states, they have different verbiage that they use for quantities of wood. There is something called a rick, which is 1/3 of a cord or a face cord. There is a rank. There is a row. There is a truckload. There's all kinds of names for it. In Canada, it's a bush cord. So there's a lot of regional terms. In Wisconsin here where I live, we have something you guys don't have. We have bubblers here. You guys know what bubblers are? It's a water fountain that you drink out of. We call them bubblers. We don't call them a water fountain. We call them a bubbler. That's just the way it is. And down south, they have Coke. When you go to the restaurant, they'll ask you, what kind of Coke do you want? Well, here, Coke is a brand, and we call it Coke or Pepsi or Mountain Dew or 7-Up or Dr. Pepper or A&W Root Beer. We kind of use the brand names. But down south, it's a Coke, which means soft drink. Now, up here, we don't call it a soft drink. We call it pop. Or you can call it a soda pop. We call it pop. You want a pop? What kind do you want? You want a Coke, Pepsi, Diet Mountain Dew? What do you want? That's how we say it. It's different everywhere. So you guys that are just hooked on it, you can't use certain words. Yeah, in your area. But everywhere else, we have freedom yet. Just saying. So this ties in with the measurement amount that I deliver to people. A lot of people ask me, how do I know how much wood I'm delivering people when I've got it in those bins that are just tossed in loose? And I'm filling a truck or a trailer. How do I know that I'm giving them the right amount? Because I do. Because I've been filling trucks for decades from measured face cords or measured thirds of a cord or measured ranks or ricks or rows, whatever you want to call it. So I know that in my truck, which is a Toyota Tundra, has a 6.5 foot long box. It's about 2 feet deep. If I fill it level with just a slight crest to it, it's a third of a cord or a face cord. Because I've filled it with measured face cords or thirds of a cord so many times, I know that's how much fits. So what I do is I put that much in, then I grab a couple more arms full and I throw it in, and I'm good. And whenever I go to deliver to people, they always get a little extra, and they're always happy for that. Now, when I got to put in a full cord, I use my bigger dump trailer, and I know with my bigger dump trailer, I know what level I need to fill it to for 2 face cords or 2/3 of a cord. I know how much I need to fill it for a full cord, which is level to a certain point. And then I throw a little extra in. And then if I need 4 face cords or a full cord and a third, I fill it completely full level. Now, if I got to put in 5 face cords or a full cord and 2/3, if you like to say it that way, I stack it. But I don't like to do that. I'd rather almost just do 2 deliveries. I don't want to have to stack it. There's guys I know that they stack the wood and then they deliver it. I have no idea why you would touch your wood so much. I have no idea. They stack it in their wood yards, and then they stack it in their trailer, and then they stack it for the people. My gosh. No. I watch the big producers, the guys that produce thousands of cords of wood a year and sell it by the semi-load, daily. They never touch their wood. They don't stack it. Everything is done with machinery. Everything is done with volume so they know what it is. The only time guys like that touch wood is if they're selling bundles. And that's a whole nother topic. They're breaking bulk. When you break bulk, you're getting more money per piece by far because it's smaller packaging. It's like when you go to Sam's Club, or what's the other one? I don't shop, so I don't know the name of the stores. What's the other one? Sam's Club? Costco, that's it. I've never been there. Never been to either of them. Don't want to go either. There's people there. So what people do is they'll buy literally a grocery cart full of toilet paper, which I'm all in favor of because I don't care how much toilet paper you have, you never have enough. But when it comes to toilet paper, they're buying in bulk like that because each roll costs less if you buy it by the 100 pack or 200 pack or whatever it is they're buying. If you buy a single roll or a 4-pack, you're going to pay way more. You're paying for packaging, shelf space, advertising, all that kind of stuff. Buying in bulk saves money. I have figured this out lots of times because people have asked me when it comes to bundled firewood. Because I have had people that I've got as customers because they used to buy bundled firewood, but they quit because they found out how much they were spending on it because they have a lot of fires. And they would go through 2 or 3 bundles every night. And at $7 a bundle, that's anywhere from $15 to $20 a night easily for a lot of people. And if you bundle your wood into 0.75 cubic feet bundles, which is the common measurement for a bundle, some guys go 0.60, some guys go a full cubic foot of bundled wood, but 0.75 is kind of the standard size. It sells in my area for about $7 a bundle. Some areas it'll go for 8. Big cities it's going to go for 10 to 12. I know, but in my area it's 7. With those bundles made from a face cord or third of a cord, you're going to get about 40 bundles. 40, 42, somewhere right in there. So just take 40 for an easy number. Let's take 7 for an easy number. So 7 times 40 is $280 worth of bundled firewood that a lot of people go through for 1/3 of a cord. I sell my wood for $120 a face cord or 1/3 of a cord. So they're saving a lot of money by buying in bulk. Now, if someone wants to come to me and say, hey, Chris, how much wood do I have to buy to get a big discount? I'd say, well, how much do you want? Because it's going to have to be a lot, because it takes me just as much work to produce one face cord as it does the next face cord, as it does the next. Same amount of work, same amount of material, same amount of fuel, same amount of time, same amount of effort. So why should I work for less? But if someone was to come to me and say, hey, I want to buy 50 full cords, then I can do something. But that's not normal. My brother Ken sells his wood by the face cord because in northern Wisconsin, face cord is all they go by. You don't never say full cord, it's face cord. And most of his customers buy anywhere from 15 to 25, some guys buy 30 face cords a year, so 10 full cords for those of you that can't convert fast. They go through a lot of wood up there because a lot of people that are up there heat with wood. And a lot of people up there are getting older, but they still like their wood heat because there's nothing like wood heat, as you know. So those are probably the most common things that come up on my channel again and again and again and again, either in the comments or guys that don't know or guys that want to know what the difference is or guys that think that their area is the same as everywhere else, and it's not. It's different everywhere, except for firewood is a lot of work. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. with another video for you. Right now, go watch all the other videos. There's over 1,400 waiting for you. Good night, Irene. Ah.